Welcome to the SmartView Demo. My name is Nicole Albertson, and I'm here to show you how SmartView can make your work in Microsoft Dynamics GP so much easier. SmartView is an easy-to-use tool that will provide you with a fast alternative and a flexible interface to all your existing SmartLists. I want to start today by defining the different tools, since we know there are a lot of different smart tools out there. We're going to define the ones that are included with Microsoft Dynamics GP, as well as SmartView and SmartList Builder. SmartList, as you probably know, is a tool that's available with Microsoft Dynamics GP and is probably pretty common in your daily use. SmartView, on the other hand, was developed by E1 and would replace your SmartList altogether. And that's what we're going to mainly focus on today, is how SmartView works and how that can replace SmartList for you. Now, as we talk about SmartList Builder, was also developed by E1, and that's going to allow you to build custom lists to pull in different fields from any third-party tables, custom views or tables, as well as any of that data you have in Microsoft Dynamics GP that just isn't contained in one of the default lists. When you build something in SmartList Builder, you'll have access to those new lists in SmartList, of course, as well as they will all go to SmartView. Now, there is also SmartList Designer that comes with Microsoft Dynamics GP. The lists you build in SmartList Designer will not be available in SmartView. Those will only show up in SmartList if you are using that tool. So when we look at SmartList and SmartView, since they are tools that will do very much the same thing, what are the differences? Well, SmartList, of course, is available with GP. It gives you your basic reporting, going to return the records that you are looking for, but it is rather slow. If you're trying to return more than 100 records or so, it can slow down a little bit there. You are limited to 4 filters to restrict that data down and get exactly what you need. SmartView is available from E1 and would replace your SmartList application. It's going to make working with the lists easier by giving you things like unlimited filters, so you can have as many search criteria as you'd like there. It's going to return totals to the screen, so you don't have to export to Excel and create the totals yourself. It allows you to group your data, so you can get kind of that summary record, and you'll have totals for your grouping as well as the detail. The export to Excel is done in a matter of seconds versus minutes. SmartView will allow you to have more than one instance open at the same time so that you can compare multiple lists against each other. And SmartView also has an option that works outside of GP. So if you have users that have a user license solely to run SmartLists, we can actually take them outside of GP, not have a GP user license in play, and they can still get access to those lists. So just to list a couple of the top features of SmartView that we talked about there, the main one is going to be performance. You can see those lists in fractions of a second versus waiting a while for those SmartLists to return. We have unlimited use of filters. The export to Excel is very quick. We get totals to our screen, and we can see that data without having to log into GP if we'd like. So that's a little bit about what SmartView can do for you. Let's take a look at it in action and get a better picture of how that works. To pull up SmartView, we're going to start in GP here, and we'll go to open it by going to the same menu as we found SmartList on, the Microsoft Dynamics GP, and we'll pick SmartView. Here you will see that it looks very much like SmartList of what you're used to today. But there are going to be a lot of differences that I'll show you as we go here. We're going to use the sales line items just to show you some different things. So I'm going to expand sales and find that sales line items. And you'll see a list return here that looks very much like the sales line items in SmartList. But you may have noticed how fast it pulled up here. We have 980 sales line items that return to us in 0.47 seconds. If we compare that to SmartList, by opening that and going to sales and choosing sales line items, you can see that it is still counting up, so it's a lot higher than that 0.47 seconds, as we're still waiting to get to that record count. and we finally got there. So in a simple list that has 980 records, it isn't a huge difference to wait for, but take that difference and now apply that to a 20,000 record list. How long would that take? So it can be quite significant in the time difference. One example we like to use of that time difference is that we had a customer in the healthcare industry that was doing over 350 million transactions annually. Before they implemented SmartView, they were literally pulling their hair out trying to get the data in SmartList. They'd start the list when they came in the office in the morning, only to hope it might return the data by lunch. After implementing SmartView, they're pulling in those same thousands of transactions in a few seconds. So they may have gotten rid of some of the coffee breaks they did while they were waiting for SmartList to run, but they're getting that data they truly need quickly when they need it. So back in SmartView here, let's just talk a little bit about the lay of land and how it works here. So if we looked at the left-hand side, this is what we call our tree view, and this is where you're going to access any of those canned lists that you get with SmartList when you're using it in Microsoft Dynamics GP, as well as any of the lists that you may have created in SmartList Builder. If we look at the right-hand side, this is where we see all of the available columns for this list that we can add. And if we look at the very top, this is our basic menu structure with the 3 different tabs. If we look at our Options tab, you can see that we can actually hide the lists and the columns to get the real estate in the main section that we might need to view the data. Let's turn those back on. And now if we go over to our columns section, we can see how easy it is to add additional fields onto our list. So I'm going to scroll down and just find our document date. And when I do so, I can just simply drag it on, and it will drag that onto the list. Now if I want something like salesperson and don't want to scroll down, we can actually search for those different columns as well. And another option is just to double click, and it's adding those fields to our list. Let's get one more in sales territory. And now we have the fields that we want. Now SmartView does have a drag and drop functionality, so we saw we can drag a field on, so we can also drag a field off if we want. So if I don't want salesperson ID, I can drag it till I get the X, and now it is removed from the list. If we want them in a different order, it still is that drag and drop functionality, so we can simply drag fields around here. Maybe I want that right after the item. Wherever you'd like that, you simply drag and drop the fields where you want them so that you can have them in an order that's appropriate for you. Now SmartView also allows us to group the data that we're looking at by different fields. Now let's say we want to group by our SOP type so that we can see all our orders together, all our invoices together, that type of thing. We can simply drag the SOP type up to our column header, and it will group by that. If I go back to our Home tab, there is a collapse all, and when I collapse that, you can see that it has collapsed by the different types, and I can expand any type to see the detail, as well as we're getting totals for the different fields for each type, and seeing our totals for the whole list at the bottom. Now we can group by multiple fields, so maybe I want to group by territory as well. So I can have a subgrouping on the territory. So now under, say, my invoices, we see ones for different territories, and we can group that way. Now SmartView also has a lot of filtering options. One of the easiest is to filter right on the fields. So let's say we only want to see invoices and returns in our list. I can simply go to the filtering on the SOP type field and select invoice and return. By default, it returns them all. We're going to limit it down to invoice and return here. So it's similar to Excel functionality that you're probably familiar with, and say OK. And now if I collapse all, you can see we only get invoices and returns. When it did that filtering, you can see at the bottom here we have a filtering bar where it's telling me what is being filtered on. So I have a SOP type of invoice or SOP type of return as the filter, and we can edit that filter by either clicking the edit filter to the right of that bar or at the top in our menu in the filter section selecting edit. And that will bring up our filter editor. Now the filter editor has a lot of great functionality in here. The main thing is that I can add as many filters as I'd like. It isn't limited to just the 4 that SmartList has. We can add as many as we need to get the data that we want. The other thing is if I expand our types there, you can see that we have an or because I chose 2 different types. But now we can also do and, not or, as well as we can add groups. So if you wanted to compare, I want it where it's this set of values or this set of values, something like that, we can create grouping in there to group that and get that functionality. So there's a lot more you can do with the filter editor here in SmartView. You can also compare 2 fields together if you'd rather do that than comparing it to a specific value. Maybe you want to say if this dollar amount equals this dollar amount in these 2 fields, then give me the record. We can do that in the filter editor as well. Now when we look at the actual filters, we have a lot of options available to you. Most you're going to be familiar with. There are a few that are really nice in here, beyond just the basic is less than, is greater than, is between. We can do things like is any of, where you can actually enter in a list and keep adding additional values. So you can compare it to multiple values there, where it's going to say it's any of these accounts or something to that effect. Change that back to our equals. If we add one for a date field, you can see dates are a little bit different, where we can do some different date and time operators. You know, is beyond this year, is later this year, is tomorrow, is yesterday. So different filtering editors there versus just typing in a date or something like that. So you're going to see those filter options change a little bit based on the type of data you're trying to filter, but there's some great options in there that can generally get you the data you need. Another option we have on the filtering, if you look over back to our columns bar, we actually have a status section where we have unposted and posted on this list. So if I uncheck the unposted, it just filtered down to just posted sales transactions now that are in the invoice or return SOP type. Alternatively, I can switch it to just unposted and we get a little bit different data, but it's another way to filter. You're going to find these status options on some different lists in SmartView. They might change a little bit based on what's appropriate for that specific list, but a lot of the transaction lists will have those there for you to use as well. Now, if we look at one of these detail records here, I can double click on it and get back to the GP window. So we have the go-tos available in SmartView. And so there's always a default one where the double click will bring you back to that record in GP. We also have the GoTo tab in SmartView that will change based on the list you're on, but will give you a bunch of additional go-tos to use on your list. There's always going to be the view one, which is the default one that opens when you double click on a record. Now if we move over to the options tab, we have an option for a find panel. If I turn that on, you can see we get this find panel at the top of our list where we can search the data that we have returned in the window for any information. So if I just want to find anything that says $5 or 5.00, could be a quantity as well, you can see that it has gone and found any records that have that 5.00 in them and returned them in the list and is actually highlighting where it found it. It searches every field on your list. So if my item number had that in there, it would have found it there, as well as all these different integer values that it found. So that's a great option to search your list quickly for a record without having to enter a filter, because you may not want to filter down your list. You want to find records where you maybe aren't quite sure which field might return that value, but we can have it return anything of that sort. There's also an auto filter row. You can see it turned on right below our field headers here. I get this little row. And let's say I know all of these have the 5.00 in them, but I want to know where the, we'll say this unit price is actually $5.25 instead of just the 5.00. So I can do that, and I tab off of it, and now it has restricted that down. It's still showing me the 5.00 highlighted because I have that in my find panel, but our filter row was based on the 5 to 5.00 on the unit price. So you can see down in our filter, it has added that the unit price starts with 5 to 5.00. So it's added that filter in for us as well. So some nice ways to find the data you're looking for without always having to go into the main filtering options and adding it there. We can quickly do it in these different find options. So we've talked a little bit at the beginning about SmartList Builder and how it lets us build out new lists to see that data that we might need that SmartList and SmartView didn't have by default. SmartList Builder and SmartView, of course, were developed by E1, so they're designed to seamlessly work together for us. If we look on our Options tab here, you can see a SmartList Builder section with a New and Modify button. The New button will get us to SmartList Builder to build a new list, but let's click Modify here, and it's going to bring us to SmartList Builder and allow us to modify the sales line item list that we're on if we'd like to. Now that it's opened the sales line items for us in SmartList Builder, we could add the additional tables, fields, whatever it might be that we need to change on it, and save it, and those changes would then be available for us in SmartView. So back in SmartView, we've talked about totals, the filtering, the grouping, our go-tos, but let's take a look at a few of the other options that we haven't seen yet. So I'm going to go back in our top left corner here and go to our Home tab and talk about a few of the options we haven't seen yet. So one of the main things you want to do in SmartView is to create different lists, and you're probably going to use those lists multiple times. So you're going to want to create favorites so that you can save that setup you have of that list and use it whenever you need to in the future. So we have this list kind of restricted down. I think I like the way it's working. I'm going to save it as a favorite, so I'm going to click Add in the Favorites section on the top left. And then we get the Add Favorite window where I can give it a name, and we'll just call this SmartView Demo. You can see we can also put a description so that if we come in later and need to know why we created this favorite, we would have that there. Then at the bottom, you're going to see that we can share this favorite to different users and companies. So we can choose all users if we want everybody to see it. Most likely we're going to want to just share it with a few users, maybe in our department or wherever we're working with. So I can do this by role using the different GP roles in their security model. I can also do it by SmartView users. If I have some external users, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I can share it to those users. And I can share it to any of the GP users that I have. So if I want just E1 user to see that, I can share it with them, but DynaSA will not see this favorite because I'm not sharing it with them. So you can pick which users. We can also go to companies and pick which of the companies RSA and E1 user are going to see this in. Now, if they don't have access to that list in the company I've chosen to share it with, they still won't see the favorite, but if they get access, that favorite would immediately appear for them. So we can save that, and now we have our favorite. And if we go back and forth between multiple favorites, you can see it's saving our grouping, it's saving our search criteria is still there because I haven't cleared that out. If I close that, that does go away, but our 525 is still in the filter criteria. So as you create those favorites, it's going to save your grouping, your totaling, all of that for you just the way you had it set up. And of course, you can always edit those favorites to save any new changes you want to them, assign them to more users, anything you need to do there. Now I'm going to open Excel just so we have somewhere to copy some data to. And I'm going to going to edit our filter so we get a little bit more data. So I'm just going to take off that unit price restriction there. And now we have a little bit more data to see in SmartView. SmartView has an option to copy and paste, and you can pick a section of columns, or I can highlight one and use the control key and select multiple different columns. And now if I right click, there's a copy option, or you could do control C as well, and I can copy and paste that to Excel or wherever you need to, maybe an email, something like that. And you can see it copied and pasted those records I had highlighted, as well as the column headers. So now I can copy and send that to somebody to verify something or whatever I need to with that data. We can additionally, back in SmartView, just copy specific fields. So I had highlighted the item description when I right clicked. And so now if I come here and paste, it's just going to copy that item description for me. So you can copy a specific field that you're highlighting over. So that's a great option if you need to share data quickly with somebody just to get something verified or anything like that. Back on our top bar, we of course have our refresh and auto fit columns so that we can refresh our data and make sure it's fitting properly. If we keep going, you can see that you can print or preview this data if you need to, but the main thing I want to show you here is the export options, and we can export to Excel, a CSV, or a PDF. The Excel option, if I just do that, it's going to ask me where to save that. I can quickly save that data, and now I have it exported in Excel as it tries to open that, and you can see that all of the filtering I had, so it's restricting that data down to invoices. And if we get past the territories here, we have our returns. It's also doing that grouping for us that we had, and our totaling. So the totaling is going in these gray rows, so we can see all of that coming through. So it basically exports it just as you saw it on the screen. So as you can see, when working with SmartView, it is one of those tools that can save you quite a bit of time in your day-to-day processes, especially if you're comparing it to SmartList and how you use that. It'll also let you do a lot more things with that data, as we saw, just being able to quickly filter data and stuff. You don't have to always export it to Excel to get a total and do those types of things. What I want to show you now is SmartView External. So we've been working with SmartView Internal, as we call it, because we're internal inside of GP. I'm going to actually close down GP here, so you can see we don't even have to have GP open on a machine to use this. And on my desktop, I have SmartView installed. So I will open that. SmartView External has a different login than GP has. So we'll log in here with our external user, because most of the time your SmartView External users are not necessarily GP users, so you wouldn't have a GP user for them to log in with. We get the same experience here in SmartView External as we had in Internal. We still have the same lists. We have that sales line items. If I had shared that to my external user, I would see that favorite that we created as well. We still have our grouping, our columns over on the right. It's just a little bit different to add them. It's just a checkbox instead of a drag and drop on and off, but we can drag and drop our fields around on the list if we want to. On the top bar, you're going to notice we still have favorites. We still can copy and paste those records, create our filters, groupings, export that data. We have all of those available. We also have our options where we can turn off and on our lists, turn our find panels on, all of that. The things we're going to be missing here in SmartView External is that integration to get us back to SmartList Builder. Now, those SmartList Builder built lists will still work in SmartView External, but because we're not in GP, we can't just open SmartList Builder right from this list and edit it. We'd have to log into GP and do that ourselves. We also lose the second tab we had with the go-tos. Because we're not in GP again, we can't drill back to a GP window from here. So those are the two things that are a little bit different, is the go-tos and being able to go back and forth right between SmartView and SmartList Builder. Otherwise, you're going to see this works pretty much the same as SmartView Internal did for a user. The great thing again is I don't have to take up a GP user license to get this data. I'm just logged into SmartView External doing it there. So I hope I've shown you some today how SmartView can make working with your data in Microsoft Dynamics GP a lot easier and save you a lot of time. Just a few other things I'd like to talk about here. If you are interested in pricing with SmartView, please let us know and we can get you the pricing based on your location. We have several different options available for you in our pricing model. I also invite you to take a look at SmartView. You can do so by going to the e1solutions.com webpage, and you'll find SmartView by going to Downloads over towards the top right. From here, you can select SmartView, and then you'll see the different releases of SmartView Internal for you there, and those are going to be listed with a different version so that when we look at those, we can get the one that's compatible with the Microsoft Dynamics GP release we're using. You will see in the notes which releases of GP they are compatible with. Generally, the SmartView version release number there goes along with your GP release number that you're going to have. You'll also see SmartView External as a download here as well. They are two separate downloads. You do need to have internal installed for external to work. You can actually download SmartView Internal and use it in any of your companies as a trial for 30 days without registration keys. After that 30-day trial, you would need to purchase SmartView to continue using it. But the great thing about being able to use it in your companies is that you can see how it returns the same data you are used to seeing today in SmartLists and compare how much easier it is to work with your actual data versus just using it in Fabricam. Thank you for joining us, and I hope we've inspired you to take a closer look at SmartView and how it can improve your use of SmartLists you have today, and how it can allow you to use the added functionality to help meet the needs of your business. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can contact our sales team by emailing them at sales@e1solutions.com, or you can give us a call at 888-319-3663, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have. We also have a chat option on our website over on the top left if you'd like to chat with our sales team. So thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your day.